Yes, girl. Forgiving looks. Hello, girl.
Hello. Oh, welcome back to Wednesday in the Diva. Yes, yes.
Yes, girl. I wish it were under happier circumstances.
Me too.
Um, and we will get into that. But of course, first of all, let's welcome everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in again to another week of In the Divas Den, joining in on the discussion. We have a lot of important topics to talk about, a lot that's been going on in the news lately, and we definitely have some great guests tonight that I can't wait to get to. But before we do all of that, we have to do our check-in. So, Precious girl, how you doing, honey?
Yeah, I was doing good. You feeling good? You feeling great? How are you? Out here in the sun, feeling a little bit of the beams and the rays, and then all of a sudden the foolishness starts, and it's like, what the hell? How do you juxtapose the feelings of you yourself being okay, but you as a people not?
Exactly.
How are you feeling?
I'm okay. I'm just okay. And we talked about this yesterday where I was at a point where I was like, I didn't want to do the show this week because I was just tired, and when you see what's going on in the news and how we're being treated, and, it's just like you find yourself saying again, and how many times we have to say again. But I'm just like doing things like this, talking to people, talking to you guys, of course, our audience, talking to our guests. It definitely does help. So I'm definitely excited to get into the topics tonight, just to have a discussion and possibly even see where we go from here.
Right.
Because at this point, something has to be done. We definitely need to talk about some sort of action, some sort of resolution, anything like that. Because if not, it's just going to continue. So I'm sure you guys have heard what has happened in the news lately. Unless you're living under the rock, it's been on social media. It's been on, the news of the murder of George Floyd. So, I mean, it's hard because we're just coming off of Ahmaud, and Brianna.
And Brianna.
So then now it's like I said, here we go again. And it's just so senseless. And I mean, I don't want to go into details because it's like the video has circulated, it's gone viral. Everyone knows there's uproar. There is, rioting. People are upset. People in Minneapolis are upset.
Have you seen the video? I didn't watch
it. I have not. Not. I refuse to watch the video.
I saw a picture and that was enough.
You said you saw what?
The picture, how you scroll and people post pictures and you kind of just it's thrown in your face. I saw the picture and I was like, I don't need to see any more from this.
No, there's no need to see the video because we know what happened. We definitely know what happened. And at this point, it's almost like, who really is the video for? Because we don't need proof. Like if a Black man were to tell me, oh, well, I was, essentially roughed up by a police officer, or they put a gun in my face, or they, punched me for no reason, I would believe them. I don't need to see video footage of that, So here we are with another video, bystanders essentially saying like, what are you doing? Stop. Why is this happening? Their police buddies standing around, not doing anything. And before we know it, another man has lost his life for no reason, Right. But of course, others will try to validate it and say, oh, well, this was the reason why.
Oh, I've already experienced that today. There was a commenter, there's a musician that I follow, Otis McDonald, and he talked about the outrage of this. And somebody underneath his post basically said, oh, well, we don't know the other side of the story. We know police are trained to do this, and this. And I said, what? So you mean to tell me all those people with assault rifles standing outside of the government buildings threatening violence for not wanting to wear 6 inches of cloth across their face or needing to have a haircut, they can spit in the officer's face, get in their face, and threaten them with rifles and just have the police stand there still. But this man, off of alleged forgery, is not here anymore because they felt the need to put their knee in his neck. Okay, see, this is the type of stuff that I'm like, look, we're not doing this.
No. No.
Like
No.
enough is enough, and it gets to the point where we as a people have to mentally suppress a lot of stuff that happens to us on a daily basis.
Mhm.
We go through life differently than other minorities and other people in this world have to go about. Why? Because we have one main factor that we cannot hide. This is not going anywhere.
Anywhere.
It follows us no matter where we go in this world. And the prejudices are still there. It's different wherever you go, but it's still there. And it's like, why can't you just treat us like people?
Exactly.
What is so wrong with us that you have to treat us like filth?
And why are you so afraid? I get so tired of hearing, oh, they feared for their life. I didn't hear it yet, with the cops from Minneapolis, but that always seems to be the common theme. I feared for my life. I feared for my life. I feared for my life. Okay, well, newsflash, being a police officer is dangerous. You're going to come across situations that an everyday person would not. So if you can't train yourself to be like, okay, let me click it in, let me get myself together, I'm prepared for this, and I'm not just going to react by shooting, then you don't need to be a police officer. We can't use that reason anymore. And this, especially what happened to this man, there's no reason for why you did it. You literally sat there and put your knee on this man's neck as he begged and pleaded, and voided his bowels and said that he, wanted his mother, just stop, I can't breathe, sir, please get off of me. And you were okay with that. You were okay with taking a human's life. What type of person are you to be okay with that? And then just go home and sleep at night?
How can you possibly, that gave me chills. Like, how as a person, as a human, just basic human rights of life, how can you ignore that?
Exactly. All because of this. That's all.
Yeah.
This right here. And you don't even Anne Marie, shout out to you guys. Thank you for watching and joining in. And please comment on the situation. We want to hear from you guys because, we do know that this is something that is affecting a lot of us. But even like Anne Marie said, we're just not seen as humans. Like dogs have more rights than we do. Did you see how people were outraged by that dog that was being
came to the defense of what happened because of the dog, not the man that was being attacked, the dog.
And we will definitely get to that later.
To life than the man.
We are going to get to the dangers of Karens later, but first I want to talk about George, because this is infuriating. Like it makes me so angry, and you're just tired and you end up crying. And then I look at people like, this could have been my brother. This could have been any of my cousins. This could have been your husband. This could have been my boyfriend. Yeah. Like this could have been my uncle. This could have been anybody.
When I tell you how I walked in the room and I just hugged him and just prayed over him, just because you just don't like, and the fact that he's growing out locks too, he's seen as even more threatening than he was before.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know. He's one of the kindest men to walk this earth, and somebody could just see him and think whatever and treat him the way they want to, and it could go any kind of way. And it's exactly. Like to anybody that we know, to us even, I've had a police officer walk up like he was scaling my car because he was afraid to come to my window. Right. Even me, like I don't understand. And to be in a country in which you have people tell you to go back to we ain't got no home. We ain't asked to be here. None of us asked to be here. Okay. We are the only ones living here that did not ask to be here. Okay. We did not come willingly. We have no home outside of here because we don't know our people. We don't know what that home would be. So stop telling us to go back home, because this is our home.
And why is it that we don't know who our people are? Because of you. Okay.
Exactly. That don't hurt. Like, I'll tell you, I went when I studied abroad in Europe, they were sitting there, all the girls talking about where their family come from. Oh, we from this country and this country. And they asked me, and I said, I don't know. And they said, why don't you know? I said, a little thing called slavery. I'm sorry. I can't give you no answer. Zamunda. That's where we from, Zamunda. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they believe it too. But still, just, you got to joke. Us as a people, we use laughter, we use music, we use all those things as medicine to soothe these mental wounds that we have that have transversed through generations. We don't know our people. You know how painful that is? That is depressing. And to be faced with that every single day would create insanity. So as a people, we have resolved to dancing and to singing and to laughing to get over this.
But the crazy
and everybody else sees it as shucking and jiving, but it's just survival for us.
But even with things like that, just being carefree, we can't even do that. We can't. We can't walk down the street. We can't laugh. We can't play video games. We can't eat ice cream. We can't sit in the house with our significant others. We can't sit in the car. We can't read a book. We can't do anything. We can't. We cannot do anything. And it's ridiculous. And even like Kayla said, we just can't be us. We can't. And I definitely
can't be us, but everybody else can be us.
Girl.
Okay. Where is everybody right now that love the hippity hoppity is bibbity boppity boo? You love doing that on the stage, but where are you right now? Where were we doing all of this other stuff that was happening to all these other minorities? We was right here with y'all, but where are you right now?
Hello.
You want to be on stage popping and locking and doing everything and singing riffs and runs, but when it comes to what really counts, where is your voice?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello and good evening. Girl, go off. But we do want to bring one of our guests on, our mentor, our, Papa, our guy. Like he's essentially our dude, and well-versed and just knows everybody. So please welcome to the show, Ed Clark, aka Papa.
Hey, what's happening? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to be on.
Hey now. We need to hear from you because one of the reasons why we wanted to go ahead and have this show was because we wanted to hear from Black men. We wanted to hear your thoughts on what's going on, your pain, your fears, and just how you're taking everything in.
Yeah, I'm a Black man, if you hadn't noticed. I've been that way for 55 years now, and it's a challenge. I was listening to you guys, and let me try to contextualize some of this. I have been stopped. I don't know. I can't even count the number of times for all different reasons, and every time I'm scared, from the first time until this last time, because I never know what it's about. I'm the most innocuous person that you can imagine. I've never had a speeding ticket, so whenever I get stopped, it's always under the guise of, can I see your driver's license, and never immediately about any violation or whatever, because I never had one. Mm-hmm. And then I get this quizzical look from cops when they come back and there's nothing there. And I've been fortunate. I mean, I've always had good jobs and been able to afford, a decent car and stuff like that. And it makes it even more difficult. And I travel a lot. I've been to that store in Minneapolis where George Floyd was killed. I've been to Minneapolis a lot of times, and I've been on that block. Minneapolis is a very unusual place. There's not that many Black people in Minnesota to begin with. And then most of the Black people are crammed into that area down there around where Floyd was killed. You have a lot of interracial relationships in the area too. There's a lot of Muslims in the area. Every time I've been in the area for Ramadan, I've gone there for, to break the fast in the evening, because the Somalis, pretty much run that area and that kind of thing. So Black folks catch hell in Minneapolis, though. Philando Castile was killed no more than about 5 miles from there. Mm-hmm. The Minnesota State Fairgrounds are right up the road from where that happened. So just again, to contextualize things, Black people catch hell for the Minneapolis police. And so I can imagine Mr. Floyd, irregardless of what he was doing, he was going to get roughed up. and that's what happens to a lot of us in a lot of places. I've been to 48 of the 50 states, and I feel uncomfortable everywhere. I've been in situations where I walked in a room and they didn't expect me to be there as the authority for whatever the job it is I was working on. And I remember one time being in Colorado, a guy saying, I've never actually talked to a Black person before, but I love this or that athlete. I get that all the time too. They don't even know how to interact with Black folks. And I want people to take this the right way. One of the problems that we have is Black folks are around a lot of Black people. So it looks like there's a lot of us, but in the grand scheme of things, we make up about 13% of the population. So there's a lot of places where there's no black people or few black people. That doesn't mean that people should mistreat us, but that is part of the reason why we get mistreated is because we don't have any leverage in some of those areas. So, I feel sorry for the family. I feel sorry for Mr. Floyd because he's not here anymore. Mm-hmm. But we do have to always have our head on a swivel as a black man. It's really tiring. And I wrote about it on my last piece. I'm going to give a plug for my website, the deal with edclark.com. And I wrote about, this constant feeling of, being under siege and how I couldn't sleep last night. And I had to get up and write about it. And I write about a lot of things, not always about race, but I try to write about, things from my perspective. And I try to include sisters in it too, because we're in this thing together. We can't do it by ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good point to, talk about when you do come in contact with police officers, like you legit have this fear, even though you've made a living for yourself. Like you said, you are well off, but when they see you in this car, it's almost like they're shocked. Like, how can you afford this? Why do you have this car? So the questions start to occur and it's like, well, I work, I'm educated. I've worked for this. Yeah. So what is it? Why does it matter to you what type of car that I drive? Like, and I mean, and what's been happening so far, even if you had a Chevy Cavalier, you would still be at fault for whatever they think you did to begin with.
Exactly. But, so it really doesn't matter what it is that you're driving or where you live or whatever. It's always this thing where you feel like you can be questioned. It's like you have to have a hall pass. Right. Or let's get historical. It's like you had to have a slave pass to be able to get from one plantation to another. The one thing that I think that people probably can't tell, because when you're in a time period, you think everything is right now. This shit is 400 years old. 1619 is when this shit started, and it hasn't changed since. There's been a little bit of change. We don't have official slavery. One of the things, I was going back listening to some Martin Luther King speeches, and he has this one where he talks about dangerous optimism. He was afraid that black people, once they got the ability to go into a restaurant, that they would forget that the shit was still lingering underneath. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. And he was like, no, don't take this as the victory. The victory is when you get up in the morning and don't have to feel this pressure all the time. We are nowhere near that. And the other thing about King is that when he was assassinated, you could go ask any white person on the street. The vast majority of American white people are happy. And they did not see King the way we see him, and they still don't. And they don't see us the way we see ourselves as human beings. Obviously Malcolm talked about it. Medgar Evers talked about it. Betty Shabazz, everybody that's been in the movement. The problem I think that we're facing right now is that we're so fragmented. Like I said, there's people who are well off, who are kind of insulated from shit, or where they think they are. And then until something happens, like the brother that was in Central Park, and the lady with the dog, exactly. She's going to call the police. He's well off. He's a cartoonist. He goes bird watching, for God's sake. How many black folks do that? And he still was subject to the same tropes that they apply to us, that we're somehow dangerous, so she's going to call the cops. He could have ended up with a knee on his neck and dead. Exactly. So, and that's the danger of white people in the way they interact with black folks.
And I'm glad that you segued into that, because that's what I wanted to get to. Just like we make this joke about Karens, like, oh, you're being a Karen. But I think this footage of, Amy calling the cops and being frantic and acting like she was being attacked by a African-American man because he was telling her, like, hey, you need to leash your dog. It's a law. And she didn't like it. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, I need to cry wolf, and I'm going to call the cops because I know you're afraid of the cops, and I know the cops are going to do something to you because you need to be put in your place, right. And we may joke about someone being a Karen, but it's very dangerous.
Shit ain't funny.
No, when people think that they can resort to calling the cops,
very dangerous.
It's very dangerous, and this whole notion of like, okay, well, I'll be a Karen. I'm going to call the cops on you because I know that they're going to do whatever needs to be done just to get you out of my face. And for me to feel like I'm still being that privileged person that I am, you can joke about it, but it's not really funny. It's dangerous.
No, it's nothing funny about that. And like I said, it's part of the same tropes that have been applied to Black people, that Black men are dangerous. I mean, the first big motion picture in American history was Birth of a Nation. It played for years. It went all around the country. And the whole premise is that somehow the South was the victor in the Civil War because they were trying to beat back these dangerous Black men who were going to rape white women. And that's the first image of people ever got of us on film. It permeated all through, the 20s, 30s, 40s, and all the films that you saw in Hollywood. And the reason why I'm talking about film is because we're all involved in film to some degree, and images are important. So we couldn't control our image. And to some extent, we don't control our image now because we then fall into the same trap. We become the thug or whatever, right? So we can be famous. One of the best episodes of Atlanta with Glover was the episode where the guy, he's a rapper and he's a big star, whatever, and then he goes into the convenience store and this white kid knows all his lyrics and expects him to be this thugged out nigger, and he's like feeling it. He's like, wait a minute, is that how I'm perceived? And so we have this dichotomy. It's this authentic Black against the Black person who doesn't want to be the thugged out. And then there's the person on the other end that goes to the extreme, and you get a Ben Carson and people like that who, sort of, wipe aside everything that's Black and be a Clarence Thomas and join the other team, so where do you fit? And if you try to be in the middle, the ones obviously the thugged out ones can't stand you, and then you got the really woke niggas that can't stand you either, and because you ain't woke enough. So we're stratified in the African American community, and I think that really makes it hard for us to actually get a victory here until we can figure out a way not to classify ourselves the way they classify us. Then we're going to be hard pressed to get out of this thing. I'm just afraid that we may have squandered an opportunity because South Asians are moving into the United States. All these people from India, Pakistan, whatever, they are now just as many as us. Latin folks have come in. They have already supplanted us. So now when you go and try to talk about Black issues, we haven't made coalitions with anybody. They don't want to hear our shit because they've already got their businesses established. They've maintained their culture or whatever. And then we're kind of the throwaway people because we're identified by the very lowest common denominator within our group. So you're not authentic Black if you're not the guy with the pants down or the girl that's shaking her ass. So then where do we fit? Right. And I can't get them to come along with me to be part of the coalition because they don't want to be. And then the ones that are rich or think they've made it, they don't want to deal with none of us. So we have fallen into the trap, and they haven't won yet, but it's making it harder for us to climb out of this hole. We got to do something.
Yeah, and I mean, we also need to mention that, even though we can try our hardest to get out of the hole, like you said, even with this whole notion of us being dangerous, it's been ingrained in minds forever. It's been passed down from kids, to kids, oh, watch out for the big scary Black man, oh, let me clutch my purse, or, oh, let me move 2 seats away, or, let me walk a little bit faster, because they've been taught that this Black man, even though he may be educated, even though he wouldn't harm a fly, even though he's a bird watcher, oh, you're seen as someone that I need to watch out for. You're seen as someone who is, an attacker or an aggressor or any of those words, which is why, I was so angry watching that video of Amy just turn it on like that. Like, oh, I can't believe he just, and meanwhile you're strangling your dog, but I can't believe, this guy, and he did, and you knew exactly what you were doing. And then, I'm glad she got fired. Look, it is what it is. You deserve to be fired. But at this point in the game, when you do something like this, you need to be held accountable to a higher standard. Exactly. Exactly. There needs to be something that needs to happen to you, because if not, it's going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening and keep happening, as it has been. People have been getting cops called on them just for having a barbecue. I can't barbecue.
Or being on a conference call that somebody else thinks something crazy is going on over here. We've had that happen to us here.
Girl, say what?
Wow.
Yes, we were on a conference call. There was no other sound in my apartment, but what was going on in the conference call. Next thing we know, we have the police knocking at the door saying that they were reported that there was some crazy stuff happening over here. And I said, not this apartment.
Wow.
But I said, do you understand how dangerous that is?
It is. When all you have to do is mind your business.
Well, that is not going to happen. They're not going to mind their business, because again, I think we have a long history of the whole idea of the police. A lot of it, especially in southern states, was to control Negroes. It didn't have anything to do with protecting the peace. And then now we have this dual problem of people who become police officers. A lot of times they're failed at everything else, and they can't do anything else. And then so they take all their aggression and their lack of being successful, because cops don't make shit. And then but they got a gun and they got a badge, and that authority makes them believe that they're impermeable and they can do whatever they want to. And so you got to contend with that too. So you got this sort of middling white man who's angry from the beginning, and so he's interacting with the public, and he shouldn't even be doing that. He's not capable of it. He's not mentally prepared to do that. And then again, you have all these racial tropes that are 400 years in the making, that I don't know if you undo those. I mean, just think about it. We're having this conversation, it's the middle of the year in 2020, and Civil Rights Act was 1965.
Right.
So what the hell happened in the intervening 55 years? My contention is that, part of it is that we got comfortable. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is that some people are just assholes and will never change. And then the other part of it is that, when we have opportunity, we have to seize them and not let people dictate, the definition of you.
Exactly. And I want to bring educator and activist Tyler Swanson up, just simply because, he has a lot of experiences with this as well. And I just want to get your intake on, essentially everything that's happening so far, as far as dealing with the cops, just essentially just being a Black educated man in America, and being seen as someone who could possibly be a threat. So first, let's welcome you to the show, but also get your insight as well.
Yeah, I think you all have definitely hit on the head. I was in the backstage just giving you all the snaps and the fists, because you guys have said it all. I mean, to the whole Amy Cooper piece, this lady here was a liberal, quote unquote, that supported Mayor Pete in the 2020 election. So, these progressives and these folks who identify as liberals are not always, advocating for our causes. And, to the whole piece of, between the killings that just keep happening and this pandemic, being Black out here is tiring. It's exhausting. I mean, we are fighting to stay alive, fighting to be seen, and fighting to be in a country that considered our ancestors 3/4 of a person. And then here we are hundreds of years later, fighting the same exact battles that our ancestors fought. And I think, I chose not to watch the video just because we're all quarantined, and just for my mental health, I can't continue just to see this. And that's a form of resistance right there. Resistance is in all shapes and forms, and I am standing in solidarity with those in Minnesota, Minneapolis, that are, in the streets, because if this quarantine was not there, I would be in the streets. Because that's me. That's my brother, my student, who, I think about all the time, who has these negative encounters with the police, because again, the police is there to serve and protect. Now, I don't know who they're protecting, because it damn sure ain't people that look like us.
Right.
So my thing is, 911 to my white folks out there. 911 is not your personal security.
Hello.
911 is meant for emergency only.
They need to get a Ring doorbell, right?
Exactly. I think, gosh, Niecy Nash had this video for white folks when they wanted to call 911. Like, don't do it.
Right.
Because the thing is, when we call 911, and that's the thing, I can't think of the system. We've had so many folks who lost their lives to gun violence that you lose track. But the sister that got killed in her home, just because her neighbor had saw that the door was unlocked and called 911 because he thought it was going to protect her, they ended up killing her. And I can't remember that sister's name.
I think it was Tatiana.
Yeah.
I think that's her name. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, even when we try to call 911 for our home safety, our blackness is still a threat. And Precious, I think you said it best. I mean, there's roles out here for all of us, especially our white friends. Those of you all who love our culture, who want to embody our culture, this is the time for you all to use your whiteness as a way to advocate for us, because we've been saying since 1619 that Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Whiteness,
and here we are.
Hispanicness,
Come
nativeness, all of that.
Like, let's be in this thing together, because again, like, we're seeing that, you know, we've had 100,000 folks, over 100,000 folks die from a pandemic, this coronavirus, and it's like it's like, what more does it take?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What more?
Exactly. And with this topic and with everything that's going on, I mean, because we know, unfortunately, we know the pattern. Black man is killed by the police. There's rioting, you know, there's angry, you know, people who are in the streets. And then all of a sudden we talk about an investigation, we talk about possible charges, we talk about maybe even being fired or administrative leave. Then it goes quiet.
Yep.
So in this instance, because I think that, you know, unfortunately, I think that this will be something that happens again. What do we do?
You know, I'm glad you bring up the what do we do part. I mean, one of the things that is interesting to me about Minneapolis, and again, I've been there a lot of times, is that the current prosecutor, if you go to his website, the first thing he says on there is that he's prosecuted racist crimes in the past. But they also prosecuted a Black police officer who said that he was feared for his partner's life and shot a white woman. They immediately arrested him, and he's serving time in prison right now for second-degree murder and manslaughter charge. I think it's third degree or whatever it is in Minnesota. Anyway, long story short is that Philando Castile gets killed in Hennepin County as well. His officer that killed him, he's prosecuted too, but he's found not guilty.
Exactly.
I guess what I'm going to say to you is, don't be surprised that even with the mayor's outrage, even with the state prosecutor's desire to, you know, be seen as being fair, he still may not get justice in Mr. Floyd, that is, because that's not how it works. We have become accustomed to watching Law and Order and shit, and the criminal always gets his comeuppance, right? But that's not how it works. White folks will walk a lot of times, especially if they're in law enforcement. Sometimes, you know, there's something, but the outcome is rare that we get what we want. So what is justice then, right? That's the larger question, and it may be more philosophical. Or it may be more metaphysical, in that is what you're going to feel about whether or not it's fair or not. So is arresting them fair? And then they may not be convicted. So we got to think about that. In the meantime, though, like I said, what do you do? And this is my challenge to Black folks, is that we got to figure out a way to bring some of our other folks along to be willing to have this discussion. The ones who run away from the news, who don't want to hear nothing about nothing, you know, because there are some of those amongst us. And they can't sit there and be dispassionate, because when something happens to them and they want me to say something about it, they have had to have been involved in the struggle. We can't, the people in the middle can't be the only ones struggling because you get worn out. Right? I think that's what Ty's talking about, is that, this constant wear on you of just trying to be figuring out how to be engaged in the movement,
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the video, well, let me ask you this, because there was one tweet that has gone viral where a young Black guy said, "Stop recording me, help me." So do you call on these same people, who don't want to get involved or who want to hold the cameras and essentially say that they're helping it, or they're doing something and say help, because we know now that these videos mean nothing. We know. We get it. We've seen what happened, and we know that these, cops are wrong. But we need to start moving past that,
Yeah. Well, we do have to have documentation. The part that becomes, I think, difficult. Ty, help me out, because if I'm a brother and I see another brother getting stomped on, you have to make that quick decision. Do you go and rush the cop? Are you going to help the brother out? Your ass is grass just as much as the dude that's already on the ground. It becomes, how do you even survive? So you have to make that split decision. And again, I think part of the problem that we've developed is that we're so attached to gizmos and phones and gadgets and all that. And so we're recording every damn thing, which is not necessarily bad because people get to see what happens. I got to get white folks to be mad about this. Mm-hmm. White folks should see the humanness. There's a dead human being. I don't care if they're green. Mm-hmm. And that's what's troubling to me, is that we still have this thing where we're trying to, get white folks to come along and see people as human. They get outraged as what over a damn dog. And then a Black person gets killed. They don't say hardly anything.
No.
But let a dog get abused. And them hoes, they're marching around the block.
Yeah, look, today is Space Day to them. # Space Day or whatever's going on.
Girl. Ooh, girl.
Yeah.
I've seen more outrage for the dog that Amy was choking up than I've seen for Mr. Floyd.
Yeah.
From white people. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I guess we should move to our final topic when it comes to Joe Biden. And his comment of, "You ain't Black. If you have to decide whether to vote for Trump or for me, then you ain't Black," and how there are a lot of people of color who are upset and are claiming that they're not going to vote for Joe Biden.
Ty, speak to our generation, please. Tell them.
So let me first say, I think Joe Biden's comments, or former Vice President Biden's comments, were foolish. I think that he put his foot in his mouth, and he understands that, for so long, the Black vote has been taken for granted by the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And for him to make that comment just proves the point that the Black vote is not always taken as taken seriously. And he should know, because the Black vote is what revived his campaign. If he did not win South Carolina, Joe Biden would not be here. And I joke and I say that Joe Biden's campaign he should really take a line from J. Cole saying he had $1 in a dream, because he didn't have any money for his campaign. Mm-hmm. Prior to South Carolina, he had no money. Now, I understand that folks, every election is too important. But this one in particular is entirely way too important for Black folks to sit at home. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact that we can't take 4 more years of Trump. And the thing is, when you look at the fact, in 2016, we had nearly 46% of eligible voters who chose not to vote. Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about what's next to do dealing with criminal justice reform and whatnot, that's on the ballot this election, because we have an opportunity, and it's not just at those who are at the top of the ticket. We know that Biden and Trump is at the top of the ticket, but you have to look at the bottom of the ticket as well. You have district attorneys that are up for re-election. You have judges that are up for re-election. You have sheriffs who are up for re-election. That is what we do next, is make sure that we register, we get out to vote, and for those who feel as if, like myself, who's about dealing with this pandemic, and as our safety more important, which it is, we can request absentee ballots and vote. So for those who choose not to go out in the polls in November, request that absentee is easy. You go on your state board of elections website and you request it, but we can't sit there and look at the fact that yes, Joe Biden, when you put the two against each other, I think he should have just spoke on his record, and that speaks for itself. And the fact that he has experience and he can be on, day one ready. But that whole piece, I think he got a little comfortable. But we can't sit there and, yes, we hold him accountable, but we can't afford not to vote. And my thing is, there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. None. But you have to look for a candidate that you can push on certain issues during this time. And Trump is one of those candidates that we know we can't push him for anything. Hell, he's not even wearing a mask out in public and listen to the doctors and the scientists. So we know for a fact that he is not what is best for our agenda. And I think that this is the opportunity for us as Black folks to demand more. You want our votes, you're in our communities when it comes to rallying for our votes, but what do we get in return? And I think, to counter that, I think now is the opportunity for Joe to really sit there and say, and to gain that trust with the Black community, I think his vice president should be a woman of color, just because it is time for Black women have been saved in this world since the beginning. Black women have tried to save us from Trump, but America didn't listen. So now is the time for us to actually have representation and lead. So I really think for folks who are sitting there saying that they're not going to vote, that's stupid. It's foolish.
Yeah, I let me jump in real quick. I know I don't want to run out of time because, I've been covering politicians for 30 years. And one of the things that I could tell the interview was going downhill. For the most part, it was okay. Charlemagne asked some decent questions or whatever. But I noticed that Biden was doing a thing that a lot of white politicians do, which is to try to feel real comfortable when they're talking to Black folks. And there's a generational divide too. Biden is 70 years old. Charlemagne is in his late 30s, early 40s. And so he was trying to be comfortable with Black folks and he got too comfortable. And that happens quite a bit. It always happened whenever I would walk in a politician's office or I'd be across the microphone from a politician. They think they can talk a certain way that they have to when they're presenting to Black people. And Joe Biden suffered from that. But in the meantime, a monkey could be running as the Democratic nominee. I'm voting for the damn monkey. It ain't no way in hell that nobody can tell me that sitting at home is preferable to having Donald Trump. That's 100,000 people dead. At nearly 40,000 of them are Black folks. We're a disproportionate number of people that are dying from this. We're a disproportionate number of people who are affected by the layoffs. We're a disproportionate number of people. You just go down the list. And we're a disproportionate number of people that die from the police. We're disproportionate, just call out some shit, and that we're there. And Donald, you think Donald Trump's going to do anything about it? This is what people in you guys' generation need to consider. Donald Trump has actually been running for president since 1980. Mm-hmm. You guys don't know that. We know Donald Trump. People in my cohort. We know him. We've seen him. We know the Central Park 5, all that shit. That was his lead up to running for president. This whole Make America Great Again, that was Ronald Reagan's slogan from 1976 when Reagan ran in 76. I know all those things. Trump goes to Neshoba County, Mississippi. That's where he launches his campaign. The other person that went to Neshoba County, Mississippi to launch their campaign was Ronald Reagan. Why did they go to Neshoba County, Mississippi? Do you guys know where that is? That's where the civil rights workers' bodies were found when they were murdered in Mississippi. He went down there to pander to that crowd. And if you think for a minute that Donald Trump, he's thrown out some shit about, criminal justice reform because Kim Kardashian and her crazy husband showed up. That has nothing to do with you at all. No. That's how he panders, and he's pandered the whole time. He will not say anything though about Charlottesville. He won't say anything about Ahmaud Arbery. He won't say anything about Mr. Floyd. He won't say anything about Breonna Taylor. He's not, because that would make his crowd go the other way. He's not going to risk that. So do you think 4 more years of him is preferable to Joe Biden, who got too comfortable talking to Charlemagne? And if that's your choice, you ain't black. And I just said it. You know what I'm saying?
And then I guess, are we to blame because we're all, and I need to ask this question real quick because we're about to run out of time, but are we to blame because we're always the people who are saying that this person is invited to the cookout? Did he just want to be invited to the cookout?
Yeah, but he's been to the cookout. And like I said, that white person that comes to the cookout a lot starts to think that they're in the family, but they really ain't.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's him.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we cleared that up. What'd you say, Precious?
You hear that all the time. I have a friend that's black. I grew up, one of my best friends is black.
Yep.
My cousins are black. Everyone around me is black. So I'm black too. And it's like, okay, but when it counts,
right,
are you about that business?
You're quiet. You're quiet. Well, guys, I mean, of course, it seems like anytime we have topics, especially topics that are important like this, it can always have a part 2. I mean, it's an ongoing conversation that needs to be had. And now that the elections are coming up, this is definitely something that we need to keep talking about. And we need to, really get revved up about it. So I say that to say, would you guys be interested in coming back, talking to us, getting people excited about going, about voting, and even possibly let's try to get some campaign going,
Most
and
definitely.
get people excited about it.
And y'all need to come on my show too. So, I mean, the offer is extended. So come on, because I need to hear from younger folks. I mean, old people like me, whatever.
Hey now, we coming.
All right.
But thank you guys for joining. As always, you can follow Tyler. Tyler, let them know where they can follow you at.
Instagram or Facebook. There it is. There it is. You already have it. So. There it is. See, I'm trying not to be like Joe Biden. I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth. So I'm going to keep it simple.
You did a fabulous job. Fabulous. And Papa Vince, let people know where they can find you.
Go to thedealwithedclark.com. I'm on Facebook, and then I have my own website, thedealwithedclark.com. There's a whole bunch of shit out there. I write a couple times a week, and then I do a show on Sundays, and I have people from all over the world on there. So
he's famous, y'all. He's famous. Yeah,
legendary.
He's famous.
Whatever.
But thanks, guys. We appreciate you so much. You guys are awesome.
Thank y'all. Y'all
Thank
stay
you.
safe out here.
Yeah, stay safe.
Hey now, you too. Did he just put his mask on? Yes. Goodness. All right, precious girl. How you feel? You good?
Well, a lot better now. Gotten a lot off the chest, and it's good to be amongst the people that understand what's going on. And then,
girl, you sound like you about a million miles away, girl. What's going on with that sound?
Can you hear me?
Try it again.
Is it better now? My mouth is in the microphone.
There we go.
Okay.
Scream at me, girl.
I scream at you. Okay.
Yes.
Well, essentially, what I was saying was, it's good to have this platform. It's good to speak amongst yourselves with the people that understand, but it's good to have a platform like this to speak to those who don't. There are literally people who are ignorant to all the stuff that's going on. Some of them, no fault of their own, because they just out there lost. But for the most part, we all got the internet. We all got the news. We all see what's going on. We can't hide from this anymore.
That part. And please, y'all, please stop reading headlines and read the entire article. Please. There is nothing wrong with educating yourself. It's free. You got the time. We're locked down. You're on quarantine. So just read, educate yourself. Stop sharing articles from 15 years ago that are no longer relevant, and just what you about to say?
All these people you said died, they've been died 20 years ago. Stop sharing the articles. Stop. Focus on the ones that's dying now.
Girl. Okay? We ain't gonna talk about people who die now because all right, it's time for us to end the show. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love you guys so much. Make sure to tell a friend, bring a friend, start a watch party, do whatever you need to do. Get the word out. Your divas, your best friends. We here, over and out. Bye, y'all.